Hey, I'm Alex, and this is Monday Morning Jeopardy, where I break down the X's and O's of the Great American Game Show. On July 12, 2022, Ben Coller made one of the worst Final Jeopardy bets of all time. Or at least that's what you'd think, if you saw Reddit, or Twitter, or, for some reason, CNN. Here was the scenario. Ben, on the right, entered final in second place, with half of Steve's score. Tamina in the middle was in third place and out of the picture. So let's break it down for Ben and Steve. We'll start with what everyone under the sun was arguing. For Final Jeopardy, there were two possible scenarios, both of which demanded Ben bet $10,000. In one case, Steve would play for the tie by betting $0 and staying at double Ben's score. This would leave Ben's only hope as a double-up and a chance at a tiebreak, since any smaller bet wouldn't get him to Steve's $20,000. The other scenario was for Steve to play for the win, by making a cover wager and guaranteeing a win with a correct answer. This would require him to get to more than double Ben's score if correct, which he could do by betting at least $1. Plus, if he bet exactly $1, he could force Ben to wager everything, since any smaller wager wouldn't get him over Steve's total if Steve were to miss, which would be $19,999. So, in either case, Ben had to wager $10,000, right? Well, let's see how it played out.
Ben Coller, what did you write down? What are Phobos and Deimos? That is correct. And how much are we going to add to your score? 3,000, that gives you 13,000. Let's go over to our returning champ, Steve Clark. Did you come up with Phobos and Deimos? No, what are Sagittarius? How much did you wager? $1. That leaves you with $19,999. Congratulations, you are our Jeopardy champion.
Oh no. Steve played for the win and missed, and Ben answered correctly, so if Ben had just bet everything like we said, he would have been crowned a Jeopardy champion with $20,000 in winnings. But thanks to a massive underbet, he was sent packing with the second place prize of only $2,000. So what happened? One recurring argument I saw online was that he decided not to play for the win and only made sure to guarantee second place, since Tamina could only finish with at most 6,400. But given that players typically go for first place, I think there's another more complex explanation that sounds like a conspiracy theory. His $3,000 bet may have been a reaction to his own optimal wager. To explain what I mean, let's back up a little. Remember, in this situation, called a lock-tie game, there are two pathways for Ben's opponent, Steve. The riskier option would be to bet nothing, since it would risk a coin flip tiebreaker question if Ben went all in. So let's assume Steve and Ben are playing for the win, like most Jeopardy players are wont to do. We said Steve should bet the minimum at $1. Now, why is that? Well, first, if Steve is correct, he locks out Ben. But more importantly, if Steve misses, we want to minimize his chance of losing. So what would it take for him to lose? Ben would have to get the question correct, Steve would have to get the question wrong, and Ben would have to bet $10,000, since any less wouldn't get him over $19,999 if he answered correctly. Plus, there's no way to make this set of outcomes narrower, since if Steve wagered anything else, like, say, $100, he would allow Ben to bet other values less than $10,000 and still have a chance at a win. So $1 is Steve's optimal winning wager, and Ben must bet $10,000 in response whether Steve goes for a tie or a win. Alright, so we've got that sorted out, but now let's add on another wagering concept described well by Keith Williams of The Final Wager. If your opponent is forced into a specific wager, hone yours. Now, it's a strategy where you're acting on your guess of someone else's wager, so you don't see it that often, but let's imagine Steve uses this strategy to update his optimal wager. If he knows Ben is forced to bet $10,000, what would it take for Steve to lose? Notice that this time, since Ben must get to Steve's total with a correct answer, regardless of what Steve wagers, all it takes for him to lose is Ben answering correctly and him answering incorrectly. In other words, any wager greater than $0 is equally optimal in terms of giving him the highest probability of beating Ben. So to get the best of those wagers, he should wager to maximize his winnings on a correct answer by wagering as much as possible. In this case, since Tamina has 3,200, he should aim to finish above 6,400, so he should wager 20,000 minus 6,401 equals 13,599. It may seem like a crazy strategy because, well, you're betting way more than $1, but it's totally valid, and it's actually one of the wagers jarchive.com recommends if you're going for the win here. So let's assume Steve bets 13,599. Then what should Ben do? Well, if Steve is right, Ben has no chance, but if Steve is wrong, he's left with 6,401, which means that in order to stay ahead if they both miss, Ben should actually bet a maximum of 10,000 minus 6,402, or 3,598. And guess what's less than 3,598? Ben's actual bet of 3,000. And just like that, we've justified the unjustifiable. So what's wrong with this logic? If you've been stewing over it for a full commercial break with the bright lights of the Jeopardy stage shining down, it seems pretty sound, and actually quite clever. But here's the problem. Look at how many assumptions we had to make to get here. Ben betting 10,000 based on Steve betting 0 or 1, that's standard operating procedure. Steve betting 13,599 based on Ben betting 10,000, which is based on Steve betting 0 or 1. Less commonplace, but not unheard of. But Ben betting 3,000 based on Steve betting 13,599, based on Ben betting 10,000, based on Steve betting 0 or 1? Now we're in too deep. Reacting to an optimal wager is fine, but reacting to a reaction to an optimal wager is a step too far, because the former doesn't happen often enough to merit the latter. It's simply one too many assumptions. Here, Steve didn't end up making the $13,599 wager, and Ben's small bet proved fatal. Well, that was a wild ride, and as it turns out, totally unnecessary. That night on Twitter, Ben revealed he was, in fact, playing for second. But at least in my opinion, the strategy of wagering based off of others' optimal wagers is still pretty cool, and it's worth adding to any betting toolbox. No conspiracies necessary. Thanks for watching this installment of Monday Morning Jeopardy! Don't forget to like and subscribe for more breakdowns.